They moved into our basement temporarily. That was 4 years ago. Yesterday, my son-in-law told my wife, if you don't like the noise, move out. Then he raised his voice at my granddaughter for hugging me first. My daughter said nothing. I sat at the kitchen table that night and wrote a letter I'd been holding in for 6 years. My name's Alan. I'm 64. I live in St. Charles, Missouri with my wife Maggie, who's 62. We've been in the same house for over 35 years. We raised both our daughters here. The house isn't anything fancy. 2 stories, a finished basement, and a quiet street with decent neighbors. It was our dream when we bought it. Still is, in a way. I worked as a machinist. Maggie worked part-time at the local library. We're retired now. We were looking forward to calm years. Quiet mornings, evening walks, small get-togethers with friends. Just peace. That's all we wanted. Then our oldest daughter, Lisa, asked for help. Her husband, Travis, had just lost his job. Lisa had just given birth to our first grandchild, June. She was barely 2 months old when they called and said their lease was up and they couldn't afford a new place. They asked if they could stay just for a few months, just until things got stable. We said yes. That was 4 years ago. The first month or 2, I didn't say anything. I understood. They were adjusting. Lisa was trying to heal, Travis was looking for work. June was colicky and cried a lot. Maggie took it all in stride. She cooked for everyone, did laundry, cleaned up after them, helped with the baby every day. We gave them the whole basement. There's a bedroom, a small half bath, and a big open space. They moved in with a U-Haul and filled it wall to wall. I told Maggie it was temporary. She nodded but looked worried from the start. By month 5, Travis still wasn't working. Lisa was home full-time. We'd ask if they were looking for apartments and they'd brush it off. We're saving, Travis said. Can't rush into something. I noticed how many Amazon boxes were coming to the house. They weren't saving. Then the small stuff started. Travis started leaving dishes in the sink. Not 1 or 2. Whole piles. Lisa would leave June's toys all over the main floor even though we'd asked them to keep their things downstairs. They stopped saying thank you. They stopped asking before using our things. Our fridge was always full of their food, but we were still the ones buying groceries. Then Travis brought home a drum set. A full-size drum set. He said he wanted to get back into music. I asked if he could wear headphones or maybe play during the day while we were out. He just laughed. This is the only time I get to myself, he said. He played at night. Sometimes past 10 p.m. Maggie started taking Tylenol just to sleep through the pounding. She asked him twice to turn it down. He got annoyed. If you don't like it, go upstairs, he said. That pissed me off, but I kept quiet. I didn't want to cause a fight in my own house. That was mistake number 1. The tension built slowly, like water behind a dam. Lisa changed. She barely spoke to us anymore. She used to help Maggie bake, help in the garden. Now she stayed in the basement most of the time. We only saw her when she came up to complain or when June wandered upstairs. And then there was June. June's 5 now. Smart, sweet, and too aware for her age. She clung to Maggie. She adored me. Every morning she'd sneak upstairs to sit with me while I drank coffee. It was the only time I smiled. But even that became a problem. Travis didn't like it. Said we were spoiling her. Said June was getting too attached. He hated when she hugged us first. Yesterday morning was the final straw. It was a quiet Sunday. Maggie was making pancakes. June came bouncing up the stairs, barefoot, messy hair, big smile. She ran straight to me and hugged me tight. "Grandpa," she said, "I dreamed about pancakes." Maggie laughed. I picked her up and sat her on my lap. She started telling me about her dream. Something about pancakes and a flying cow. Then Travis stormed upstairs. No warning. He looked at June, then at me. What did I say about coming up here without asking? His voice was loud, sharp. June flinched. Maggie turned from the stove and said, "She's fine, Travis. She's just saying hi." He looked right at Maggie and snapped, "If the noise bothers you, maybe you should move out." The room went silent. You could hear the coffee maker drip. I looked at Lisa. She was behind him, holding a cup. She didn't say a word, just stood there sipping. I put June down and stood up. "You hear what he just said to your mother?" Lisa didn't look at me. She turned around and walked back downstairs. That night, I didn't sleep. Maggie sat in the living room holding her coffee cup like it was keeping her upright. She didn't cry. She just stared at the blank TV screen. I hadn't seen her look like that since her dad's funeral. At midnight, I sat down at the kitchen table with a yellow legal pad. I started writing. It poured out of me like water through a crack. To Lisa and Travis, you've been in our home for 4 years. You came here asking for help and we gave it freely. We gave you the basement. We gave you space. We gave you food, electricity, water, internet, quiet. We gave you everything. You gave us stress. You turned this house into something it was never meant to be. A place where Maggie and I walk on eggshells in our own home. You stopped saying thank you. You stopped offering help. You treat Maggie like she's just another person in your way. Travis, when you told my wife, your daughter's grandmother, to move out of her own house, that was the final straw. And Lisa, the fact that you said nothing speaks volumes. So here's the deal. You have 30 days to move out. I don't care where you go. I don't care how. I don't want to hear another excuse. This house will go back to being quiet. Maggie will go back to smiling in the mornings. June can still visit. That door will never be closed to her. But you two? Your time is up. Dad, I left the letter on the counter. I went to bed. I didn't sleep, but I rested. The next morning, I woke up early. Maggie was already in the kitchen, standing near the stove, staring at the letter I left on the counter. She didn't touch it, just looked at it, like she couldn't believe it was really there. I poured myself a cup of coffee. She didn't say a word, just gave me a slow nod. Her eyes were tired, but there was something else there now. Relief, like she'd been holding her breath for years. We didn't talk. Downstairs was dead silent. Around 9:30, I heard yelling. Not just raised voices, real yelling. Travis was shouting. Lisa was crying. Doors slamming. I couldn't hear every word, but I heard a few clear ones. He's throwing us out. Can you believe this? You don't even stand up for us. You said this was temporary 4 years ago. Then it got quiet. Real quiet. I sat at the table. Maggie sat across from me. We waited. At around 10:15, Lisa came upstairs. Her hair was a mess. Her face was red and puffy. She looked like she hadn't slept either. She was holding the letter. She put it down gently on the table and sat across from me. I read it, she said. I nodded. She looked over at Maggie, then back at me. We'll be gone by the end of the month. Maggie stayed quiet. I could tell she didn't believe it yet. And honestly, neither did I. For 2 days, they barely came upstairs. No yelling, no stomping, no loud drums. It was weird, like they were avoiding us. I thought maybe they were finally packing. Then on day 3, the silence broke. I was outside mowing the lawn. Maggie was inside folding towels. She said Travis came up, walked into the kitchen, and opened the fridge. Maggie didn't say anything at first. Then he started pulling out food. Stuff we bought. Leftovers she had made the night before. He dumped it all on the counter like it was his. Maggie finally spoke up. Travis, that was for dinner tonight. He turned around, smirked, and said, we've been feeding ourselves for years. Thought we'd help ourselves like always. Then he walked out with 2 plates. I saw Maggie from the porch window. She just stood there, one hand still on the dish towel. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She just froze. When I came inside, she told me what happened. Her hands were shaking. That was it for me. I walked straight downstairs. Their door was wide open. They were sitting on the couch, eating like nothing was wrong. June was on the floor watching cartoons. I looked at Lisa first. I said 30 days, I said. But if Travis pulls one more stunt like that, it'll be 3. Lisa looked away. Travis laughed under his breath. You gonna call the cops on your own daughter? He said, not even looking up from his plate. If I have to, I said. I'm done asking. Lisa stood up. Please don't fight, she said. June doesn't need this. She didn't need her dad yelling at her either, I shot back. Or her mom doing nothing about it. She didn't answer. Just looked at the floor. That night, Maggie and I talked about it seriously for the first time. We'd been patient. Too patient. And it hadn't done anything but make things worse. Maggie suggested something I never thought she'd say. Maybe we need to talk to a lawyer, she said. Just to know what our rights are. So the next morning I did. I called a local attorney, old friend of mine, Steve Collins. We hadn't talked in years, but he remembered me. I told him everything. From the day they moved in to Travis telling my wife to move out of her own house. He listened carefully. Then he said something I didn't expect. Alan, they're tenants now. You didn't ask for rent, but they've lived there too long. Legally, you have to give them a formal eviction notice. And if they don't leave, you'll have to go through the court. I felt my stomach twist. So we can't just kick them out? I asked. No, not without the process, he said. Unless they leave on their own. I told Maggie. She looked down at her lap, quiet for a long time. They'll drag this out, she whispered. And I believed it. 2 days later, it got worse. Maggie had gone upstairs to get fresh towels. She walked into the basement without knocking, something she had every right to do. She told me later she found Travis drinking a beer on the couch. It was 11 a.m. He looked at her and said, "You can't just barge into our space. This is our home too." Maggie told him, calm as she could, "It's not your home. It's mine. You're a guest here." He stood up, got real close to her. "You sure about that?" he said. She didn't tell me this part right away. I found out the next day when I saw the tears in her eyes while she was washing dishes. "You didn't tell me he stood over you like that?" I said. "What if he touched you?" She shook her head. "He didn't. But it scared me. I saw red. That was it." That night, I filed a formal eviction notice. And delivered it. Watched Travis take it with a smug little grin. But I wasn't done. After I handed Travis the formal eviction notice, he didn't say anything. Just looked at it like it was a joke. Then he folded it up, slid it into his hoodie pocket, and went back to the basement without a word. Lisa didn't even come upstairs that night. For the next week, things were tense. They didn't speak to us. They didn't eat upstairs. The only one we saw was June. She still snuck up every morning like clockwork. Still ran into my arms, still asked Maggie for pancakes. We never turned her away. And I never let her feel any of the anger I felt. She was just a kid caught in the mess her parents made. But we knew something was brewing. You can feel it when someone's planning something. The silence becomes too still, too fake. That Friday, I got home from the hardware store and noticed something strange. Our router was gone. I checked the modem unplugged. The whole internet setup had been pulled from the shelf. Maggie was in the backyard gardening, had no idea. I marched down to the basement. Travis was sitting there on his laptop, headphones on. "Where's the router?" I asked. He took off one headphone. "Oh, I moved it downstairs." "You what?" "It was easier for my signal," he said, not even looking guilty. "You can still use it upstairs. It just works better for me down here." "That's not your equipment. That's my account, my name, and you don't touch it without asking." He shrugged. "Didn't think it'd be a big deal. Chill out." I turned and went back upstairs. I wasn't going to get into it down there. But the next morning, I called the internet company and changed the password. Then I unplugged the router and put it in our locked bedroom. An hour later, Travis came stomping up the stairs. "You really gonna be this petty?" he said. "I'm done playing nice," I told him. "You've got 2 weeks left. You're lucky I let it go this long. You think I want to stay in your crusty house?" He snapped. Maggie stepped in before I could say what I really wanted to say. "Enough," she said. "This ends now." He left the kitchen, but not without muttering, "Psycho old man." Lisa came up later, eyes red. "Please stop fighting," she said. "You're scaring June." "You know what scares June?" I asked. Watching her dad scream at people and her mom never doing a damn thing about it. She didn't have an answer for that. But then the twist came. I got a phone call from June's kindergarten teacher the next week. She called to ask if everything was okay at home. I said, "Why?" She said June had been crying at school, saying she didn't want to move, that her daddy and grandpa were yelling and her mommy sleeps all day. The teacher said June had mentioned something about maybe living in a car. That hit me like a brick. Not because I pitted Travis or Lisa, but because I realized something: they really had no plan. They'd been here so long, they truly believed they'd never leave. They had no savings, no backup, no timeline. They just existed in our home, letting time pass. I asked Maggie that night, "Do you think they're really gonna be homeless?" She shook her head slowly. "Lisa has friends, and Travis has parents in Springfield. They're not helpless." "But what if they try to guilt us through June?" I asked. Maggie looked at me, eyes steady. "Then we have to hold the line, or this never ends." Then came the next twist. Lisa's friend Denise showed up. She and Lisa were close in high school but hadn't talked much in years. I knew her vaguely. She worked at a daycare nearby. She knocked on the door one afternoon, real polite, and asked to speak with me and Maggie. We sat on the porch. She said Lisa had called her crying. Told her they were being kicked out and had nowhere to go. Denise said, "Look, I know things probably aren't like Lisa's saying, but I also know she's scared. She told me Travis might leave her if she gets thrown out." That stunned me. "Leave her?" I said. "He's the one dragging her down." Denise nodded. "I know. I've known it for years. He's toxic. Controlling. She stopped calling me once they got married. He didn't like her having friends." I looked at Maggie. She was staring at the floor. Denise continued, "I can take her and June in. Not Travis. He's not welcome. But Lisa won't go unless you push her." That changed things. Later that night, Maggie wrote Lisa a letter. She left it on the basement door. Lisa came up crying, holding the letter. "You want me to break up my family?" Maggie stood firm. "We want you to wake up. We want June to grow up safe. You don't have to stay with someone who belittles your mother and threatens your father." Lisa didn't answer. She just walked out the front door, sat on the porch, and stared at the street for over an hour. Travis never came looking. The days ticked down. 10 left, then 7, then 5. Still no bags packed. Still no plan. But the cracks were showing. Lisa started coming upstairs again, quietly, helping Maggie with dinner, reading to June on the couch. Travis stayed in the basement. One night I heard him yelling. Lisa was crying. Then something slammed. I stood up, but Maggie grabbed my arm. "Wait," she said. "She needs to decide." And we waited. The slam we heard that night wasn't a door. It was a suitcase. Lisa finally packed. Next morning, she came up early before Travis woke up. She had June with her, wrapped in a little pink blanket, still half asleep. Maggie and I were sitting at the kitchen table. Lisa stood in the doorway, holding her daughter, and her voice cracked. "I'm leaving today," she said. I looked at her, trying to read her face. "With him?" I asked. She shook her head. "No, just me and June. Denise is coming at noon." Maggie stood up slowly. She walked over and hugged her without saying a word. Lisa started crying. Not quiet tears. Real sobs. "I should have left him a long time ago," she said. "I just didn't know how." I didn't say anything. Not right then. The anger I had been holding all those years, it didn't disappear, but something inside me shifted. She was finally doing what we'd hoped for. She was choosing better. But Travis had other plans. At 11:30, he finally came upstairs. He had a beer in one hand and his car keys in the other. He saw Lisa's suitcase sitting near the door. He froze. "What the hell is this?" Lisa stood up. "I'm leaving. With my kid," he snapped. Lisa stood her ground. "With our kid. And you're not stopping me. You really think I'll let you just walk out of here? You think you'll get custody?" He laughed. Ugly, loud. Then he looked at me. "This is your fault, old man. You poisoned her." I stood up. Not fast. Not aggressive. Just calm. "You poisoned yourself," I said. "You did this. Not me." Then I handed him a folded piece of paper. He snatched it. It was a copy of the restraining order Lisa had filed that morning. With Denise's help. He looked at it, then looked at her. "You went to the damn courthouse without telling me?" "I went to the courthouse to protect my daughter," she said. He threw the paper at the floor, stepped toward her. I stepped in. "You take one more step, I'll put you through that door," I said. "And I mean it." Travis stopped. For the first time, he looked unsure. He looked around like he was realizing something. No one was scared of him anymore. At 12:06, Denise pulled into our driveway. Lisa carried June out to the car, suitcase in hand. Travis followed, shouting, yelling every name he could think of. But when he got close, a police cruiser pulled up behind Denise. Lisa had called them earlier, just in case. 2 officers got out. Travis froze. They didn't arrest him, but they told him if he so much as called Lisa again, he'd be sitting in jail. He turned around and walked back into the basement. Coward. Lisa and June left that day. Denise sent us a text later, said they were safe. Said Lisa smiled for the first time in months. But the story didn't end there. 2 weeks later, we got a notice in the mail. It was from a local pawn shop, addressed to Maggie. Travis had tried to pawn her mother's silver set, the one we kept boxed up in the basement closet. He didn't even have the brains to file off the initials. I drove straight down to the shop with the original receipt and the family history. Got the set back. The manager was understanding, said he'd deal with Travis on his end. I wasn't done. I filed a police report. A few days later, Travis was arrested. Petty theft and violation of the eviction order. He was supposed to be completely out of the house, not touching anything. Turns out he was still sleeping in the basement, even after Lisa left. He had no friends, no job, no backup plan. The police cleared him out for good. Took a full month to clean out the basement. Trash, dirty clothes, broken electronics, beer cans, food wrappers. It looked like a landfill. It smelled worse. But Maggie and I scrubbed every inch. Tossed out what we could. Donated what was usable. Got a junk service for the rest. We put June's old toys in storage. We kept her art on the fridge. And for the first time in 4 years, we sat down in our living room, turned on the TV, and watched a movie without stomping or yelling coming from downstairs. A year later, things look different. Lisa is working full-time at the daycare where Denise works. She's filing for full custody. Travis hasn't shown up to a single court date. He disappeared somewhere in Springfield. Word is he's sleeping in his car. June is doing great. She visits every other weekend. She helps Maggie bake again. She runs into my arms just like she used to. Only now she hugs her grandma first. Every time. We framed the letter I wrote that night. The one that started it all. It hangs in the hallway right outside the basement door. Maggie says it reminds her to speak up sooner next time. Me? It reminds me that keeping quiet for too long doesn't keep peace. It just builds pressure. And when it breaks everything. But sometimes, breaking is what sets things right.